Shutter speed is the duration or length of time that the camera shutter curtain remains open, and it is actually measured in fractions of a second. It determines the amount of time light is allowed to reach the camera image sensor and form an image. Shutter speed directly affects the overall exposure of an image. Faster shutter speed, like 1/1000th of a second, allows less light to reach the sensor, resulting in a darker image, while a slower shutter speed, for example 1/30th of a second, allows more light to reach the sensor. This will result in a brighter exposure. Creatively, shutter speed plays a vital role in freeze-in motion. Faster shutter speeds, for example 1/1000th of a second or higher, can freeze fast-moving subjects such as sports action, wildlife and meat action, and this produces a sharp and crisp image. A slower shutter speed, on the other hand, so like 1/30th of a second or slower, allows moving subjects to blur intentionally or not, creating a sense of motion or an artistic effect. This is useful for capturing like flowing water, light trails, long exposures, or night scenes. You can use this creatively. Shutter speed also affects the motion happening behind the scenes. This means your ability to handhold the camera without introducing camera shake. Slower shutter speeds require more stability to prevent blur caused by unintentional camera movement on your part. Using a tripod or stabilization techniques are essential things for longer exposures. As a rule of thumb, anything slower than 125th of a second will require some sort of stabilization. Faster shutter speeds are better suited for handheld shooting as they reduce the risk of blur due to your own camera shake. So anything over 125th of a second should be able to handle small movements on your part. It is important to keep in mind that wider lenses can handle slower shutter speeds, while longer telephoto lenses require faster shutter speeds to avoid camera shake. This is why you often see nature photographers and sports photographers using a tripod or a monopod when they're shooting. When it comes to real-life photography, it is easy to visualize how shutter speed affects your image. If you're photographing people, for example, more often than not, you're trying to create sharp images. This means that you want a fast enough shutter speed to freeze motion. If the subject is sitting down for a portrait, there isn't a lot of movement, so you don't need to shoot too fast. But if you're photographing people moving, dancing, doing sports, running around, or in action, like for example at a wedding, your shutter speed will become very important to capture the moment sharply. The opposite is true for photographing still subjects. Whether it's a landscape, a cityscape, or objects, you're photographing things that don't move, which of course means shooting at a slow or fast shutter speed won't actually make a difference. In this case, you can choose to set your camera on a tripod and use a slow shutter speed in order to liberate more aperture options or compensate for low light situations. But not all movement is made equal. Shutter speed is indeed relative to the speed of movement of the subject being photographed. The faster the subject moves, the faster the shutter speed should be to effectively freeze the motion. Higher shutter speeds in the range of 1/1000th of a second or faster are typically used to capture fast-moving subjects, while normal motion of a portrait can be frozen at 125th of a second. Slower movement allows for slower shutter speeds. When photographing subjects with slower movements, like a person walking or gentle waves on a beach, you have more flexibility with the choice of shutter speed. Slower shutter speeds in the range of 1/30th of a second or slower can be used to capture intentional motion blur while still maintaining some sharpness in the subject. The key is to adjust your shutter speed to match the speed of the subject you are photographing. If you're finding that your images are blurry due to subject movement, try increasing the shutter speed. On the other hand, if you want to convey a sense of motion or capture intentional blur, try decreasing the shutter speed to allow more movement to be recorded in the image. Understanding the speed of movement and adjusting the shutter speed accordingly allows you to control the appearance of motion in your photographs. Experiment with different shutter speeds to achieve the desired effect, whether it's freezing fast action or intentionally capturing motion blur. By matching the shutter speed to the subject's movement, you can capture compelling images that convey a sense of energy, dynamics, or tranquility.